Hi guys, this is Hirosaki. This story is all about what if Naruto was in Game of Thrones. Many know Robert's first, and only, legitimate child was stillborn. But what if that was wrong? What if the gods, namely the Shinigami, intervened at the last moment? What if the deity pulled a hero from his collection and placed it in the child? To become a hero of the Seven Kingdoms? Empowered to combat treachery? To bring peace to the world? His name? Naruto of House Baratheon. Welcome aboard. Chapter 3. 1 step forward, 2 steps back. Tyrion Lannister had lived a long and interesting life. More so probably than most people could or would in his position as a dwarf. No one else could say they lived to survive half the things he did nor endure the various pains one in his position go through all their life. Even more is the hand of the king in terms of being a temporary one and now being a permanent one until relieved of his duties by the king. Or until his death. Whichever came first. What troubles you, my lion? I thought you would be happy with how things turned out for us. Asked Shea while she watched him at his desk where paperwork was sitting to be signed. I am happy, my dear. But from what Bronn told me about my nephew Naruto makes me worried, said Tyrion, since he and his hired sellsword had a conversation about the new king soon after the first small council meeting. Flashback Tower of the Hand several days ago. I'm telling you, Tyrion, that man is him. Exclaimed Bronn with a hint of fear in his voice while Tyrion looked at him in confusion. Care to explain further? I don't know why you are acting like this, but clearly you know my nephew from your own time traveling the word, said Tyrion while getting a cup of wine to drink. I do know him, or rather I know of him. Your nephew, and now king of the Seven Kingdoms, is known as Kage over in Essos. It is an old Valyrian word meaning shadow, replied Bronn while Tyrion looked at him in shock. I didn't know you spoke the language. I'm a little rusty myself, but I can get by when I have to with it, remarked Tyrion while Bronn ran his hand through his hair. I only know the damn word because I asked someone when I was watching a match in the fighting pits when I was a much younger man. The people in the arena were chanting Kage. 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 Over and over again when he walked into the arena. It was just him fighting 5 other people. All from different backgrounds. All skilled fighters. When I asked why he was called Kage, someone said it was because he always almost killed you while in your shadow or leaving one. He could and would move so fast, you didn't realize you were dead until your body hit the ground, without your head attached. Said Bronn while Tyrion frowned at this news. So, my nephew is no stranger to combat. The same could be said for his father. So, what has you on edge? You look ready to leap out of my window, questioned Tyrion while Bronn slowly began to calm down. I'm not on edge out of worry for a past slight. I didn't piss him off or meet the man face to face until now. Thank the gods. It's just, the man is dangerous, Tyrion. This man was a legend in the fighting pits, killing some of the best fighters those pits had to offer. Even the Red Viper of Dorne was bested by Naruto and was only spared death because the two hate your house on practically the same level. If I were to guess, the two probably are good friends, or at least respect each other a great deal not to fight the other, said Bronn knowing he could fight those transparent Knights of the Vale, maybe a hill tribesman or two. But someone like Naruto? Fuck no. Bronn would almost prefer to fight either the Hound or even the Mountain with just his bare hands over fighting the new king. It's good to know my house can bring certain people together, commented Tyrion with Bronn shaking his head. I'm serious, Tyrion. I like you. I do. You pay well, you give me jobs where I can use my talents. But just so you know, right here and now, if you were to ask me to side with you in some scheme to betray your nephew for someone else, whether it's Joffrey, Stannis, or even Tywin Lannister himself, I will tell you my answer now as I would then, fuck no. Said Bronn while Tyrion nodding. Well, it's a good thing I have no intention of betraying my nephew. He's not like Robert or Ned Stark. He's not too blinded by his vices, if he has any. Nor does he wrap himself up in honor like a heavy cloak and expect others to follow him for it. He knows what has to be done and will get it done no matter what, said Tyrion while Bronn breathed a sigh of relief. Good. No offense, Tyrion, but your family has a fucked up history of backstabbing just about everyone they come across to get what they want, remarked Bronn while Tyrion nodded. I'm not like my family, Bronn. I'm the imp of House Lannister, remember? Everything my family would do, I do not, said Tyrion with Bronn laughing for a moment before he looked serious again. Just stay on the king's good side, Tyrion. I don't want to be given the order to kill one of the few people in King's Landing I like to be around, said Bronn before he left the room to leave his employer in thought. End flashback. I thought you said the king wasn't like his brother Joffrey? Asked Shea while Tyrion nodded. He's not. But all the same, his temper if provoked. I wonder if this feeling is something close to what my father felt when he was Hand of the King during the Targaryens' rule? Said Tyrion with concern while Shea walked over to him behind his chair and wrapped her arms around him. Don't worry, my lion. From what I have heard in passing, King Naruto won't hurt those he trusts, and those who do their duty well. You have done a wonderful job as Hand of the King already. I know you will continue to do it while under this king's rule, said Shea as she comforted her lover. I hope so, my dear. I don't want either of us to be on the receiving end of his wrath, said Tyrion with a smile on his face and was actually happier with how things happened with Naruto sitting on the Iron Throne over Joffrey. For one, he didn't have to sneak Shea around the Red Keep like he originally did when first arriving in King's Landing. Shea had been made Sansa Stark's handmaidens in order to have an excuse to keep her around without Cersei, Joffrey, or even Littlefinger from suspecting her reason for being here. Oh, Varys knew. He always knew. Nothing truly got away from him with his little birds and spinning his little webs to know what everyone around him did. But surprisingly, the spider didn't hold it over him like other would, and simply implied to Tyrion that discretion was necessary when dealing with Cersei wanting to hurt everything he loved. And speaking of Cersei, she was no longer in King's Landing. It was like the gods old and new had swooped down to answer his prayers of being allowed to be with his love without fear of Shea being targeted by his sister. Cersei's spies along with Littlefinger's own network within the city had been effectively rounded up thanks to the spider using his little birds and now were under the employ of the new king. And speaking of the king, he somehow knew of Tyrion's relationship with Shea, but did not care if they were in a relationship or not. When Naruto spoke to him in private about it, he only asked that the two be faithful to the other, and their romance didn't prevent the defense of the city during the war. Tyrion had no problem with that since he didn't plan to have his relationship with Shea interfere with his duties as Hand of the King or the other way around. Together, he along with Varys, and the king himself had been working hard to fix King's Landing of the current decaying state left by King Robert prior to his death. It would not be easily given the lack of certain resources, but Naruto had believed they could do it, and Tyrion saw the man was truly determined to endure the hardships with everyone else. House Stark Army encampment 3 days later. Robb Stark looked at the message in his hands. He had read it over and over again at least 5 times. 5. Even after reading it that many times, the words on the parchment were hard to process within his mind. Not surprising since it was hard to believe. A new king was sitting on the Iron Throne yet again? One who could claim the Iron Throne by right and blood as Robert's firstborn and, if rumors about Joffrey were true, only son? Dear Lord Stark, I write to you in the name of Naruto of House Baratheon and the new rightful king of the Seven Kingdoms. Contrary to what many know or believe, Robert did in fact have a child with Cersei Lannister almost 20 years ago. It was during a dreadful storm at night that almost brought King's Landing to her knees. Due to a strange moment in time following Naruto's birth, King Robert had decreed his son was considered to be stillborn, and hid his son out of anger mixed with shame. No doubt in regards to certain Targaryen features manifesting themselves in his son. Namely in the eyes. Before the change, they were in fact very much blue like any Baratheon should possess. Robert himself had called Naruto his son before the gods decided to throw their hands into the mess. After 4 years of living in King's Landing, Robert had sent the boy away to Essos, and the Queen tried to have him become an Unsullied. I don't know if you have heard of the Unsullied by any chance, Lord Stark, but I assure you that becoming one is most unpleasant, and one does not have the ability to produce offspring if they do. My king has commanded that I make contact with you, and to bring about some measure of control to this dreadful war. He has no quarrel with you, Lord Stark, and does not wish one to have one. As your father and his father were sworn brothers many years ago, started during their time fostered by Jon Arryn, the king wishes to keep that tradition alive. To that end, he wishes to propose a brotherhood ceremony with you once this stupidity of a war with House Lannister is over. To further prove the king means what he says, as a show of good faith, some trusted men from the Kingsguard are being sent to the north with the body of your father Ned Stark along with the sword ice being sent directly to you to use. As the new Lord of House Stark, it falls to you wielding the sword as your father once did when he was Lord of House Stark. In addition, it will no doubt please you to know the king is taking the protection of your sister Lady Sansa very seriously now that the former King Joffrey is no longer a threat to her life here in King's Landing. Sadly, the war itself is another issue, with the roads not being secure enough for moving someone of her position to another location without it being known by the Lannisters. If they learned of her being escorted to you or the north, I have no doubt they would seek to capture Lady Sansa, and used as a hostage to trade for the Kingslayer Jaime Lannister. Fortunately, I have it on the king's word that once safe passage has been made available, he will ensure Lady Sansa is returned to you and to Winterfell unharmed. Sadly, this is where the good news ends, and the bad news begins. For while Lady Sansa is now safe under the much-needed protection of King Naruto, your younger sister Arya Stark cannot be found within the city. King Naruto optimistically suspects she escaped shortly after Ned Stark's execution, and she is making her way north to Winterfell as we speak. At the same time, the City Watch and the Kingsguard are on the lookout for Arya in case she is still in the city, with instructions to bring her to the Red Keep to be with her sister. All the same, do keep an eye out for your sister if she has escaped the city, and know should Arya be found within King's Landing you will be informed immediately. One final thing you need to know at the behest of my king is the status of Winterfell and how exposed the north is, with the majority of the army you command no longer in it. We know you sent Theon Greyjoy back to his father in the hopes of getting the Kraken to side against the Lannisters. No doubt you did it due to the need for ships to aid your war effort. A sound plan, but my king fears your choice in a possible ally was quite poor, and I honestly agree with him. Theon's return to his house will only spur Balon Greyjoy to strike when he learns the defenses in the north are at their weakest. With your domain fully exposed to a flanking maneuver, Balon Greyjoy will see this as a means to finally get revenge on the north, your house, and everyone who fought against him during the Greyjoy Rebellion. King Naruto also suggests that you send some of your men back to fortify the coast of the north and any key points the Greyjoy fleet might attack. Whether you listen to such sound advice is entirely up to you, Lord Stark. Varys, the Master of Whispers. Robb Stark put the message down and sighed while reflecting on the words written on the parchment. The spider and this new king, who had apparently replaced Joffrey, thank the gods, were not wrong. It had been some time since Theon had gone to see his father in the hopes of securing the Greyjoy fleet to attack the Lannisters in the Western Lands. He had been unsure of Theon's idea to ask the Ironborn for help, but his sworn brother had assured Robb that his father would do anything for his remaining son and heir to the Iron Islands. But no word had reached Robb of Theon's success in bringing House Greyjoy into the fold with their fleet, and it was making the young wolf increasingly nervous. The Ironborn were obsessed with stealing what did not belong to them, with their house motto being "We do not so." Why make something when it was easier to take it from someone who did? Why put in the effort to make a sword when you could just take it from someone in a surprise attack before running said sword through the victim's belly? I was a fool to believe Theon's plan would work. And now I have left the entirety of the north undefended from a possible Greyjoy invasion, thought Robb while looking over his map within his war tent. And what he saw disturbed him. In his haste to call the banners and starting this war with the Lannisters, he realized just how vulnerable his rear flank was in the process. The men left behind in the north to defend it were too few and too scattered to repel something like an attack from the sea. If Balon Greyjoy learned of this, which Theon would no doubt reveal, even unintentionally on his part, the Ironborn would prepare to attack the north, and return to their ways like they did in the past. "Guard!" called out Robb with one of his men coming into the tent. "Yes, your grace?" asked the bannerman. "Wake the other lords and tell them I am calling an emergency meeting. Tell them it is an extremely important one. Go now," commanded Robb with the man nodding and went off into a run. Robb could only pray he wasn't too late to act to defend his home. With Stannis 2 days later. Stannis of House Baratheon was not amused by the message the spider sent him and was half tempted to throw it into the fire to watch it burn. Maybe it would appease the Lord of Light and give him an army capable of defeating Renly. Bah! This god the Red Woman was preaching about was getting on his nerves. All she said was Lord of Light this. And Lord of the Light that. While saying the flames spoke to her. Showed her visions. Told her how the Lord of Light favored him as the one true king of the 7 kingdoms now that Robert was dead. So how did this news of Robert actually have a legitimate son escape his notice or the Red Woman? Dear Stannis of House Baratheon, I pray to the 7 that this reaches you in time. While you may have strayed from the faith of your father and house, I trust in the gods that are good to speed this message along. As you may have no doubt heard by now, a new king has come to replace Joffrey, and is Robert Baratheon's child by blood. The news is indeed true. The new king is indeed Robert's son. His only legitimate one. He was born nearly 20 years ago on the night of a great storm surrounding King's Landing. Many heard the child was stillborn, but the truth is the child lived. But sadly, due to the child sporting Targaryen features in the form of his eyes, Robert decreed the boy stillborn, and hid him away for 4 long years. After such time went by, your late brother sent him off into exile in the land of Essos, and the Queen Cersei had secretly ordered the handmaiden in charge of his care to turn the boy into an unsullied. However, I took measures to ensure the latter did not happen, and the boy was raised for a time by the handmaiden. I am well aware of the situation regarding Joffrey's questionable parentage from what the late Ned Stark wrote to you before his death. Sadly, the man did not know of Naruto, or else he would have made such news known to you and Renly to prepare your house to back Robert's only legitimate son. Yes, contrary to Cersei's other 3 children, Naruto is indeed Robert's by blood, and even if Joffrey was in fact Robert's by blood, he is not the firstborn son. Thus, by blood and by right of succession, Naruto is Robert's successor to the crown, and you must swear fealty to him. I know it is something you would rather not do, given how you feel the Iron Throne is yours by right as Robert's brother, but for the good of the realm, this must happen. Support your one true blood nephew in this dark time and help bring peace to the 7 kingdoms before this war escalates even further out of control. Varys the Master of Whispers. Could it be a trick? Someone claiming to be Robert's long-lost son? Surely not even the spider could fabricate such a ruse to circumvent Joffrey from ruling on the Iron Throne if he felt the brat was unworthy. Which Joffrey was given the truth about how the boy's true bloodline parentage was incestuous and very disturbing. But this new player claiming to be king was different. Robert's son by blood. His own nephew by blood. Sure, Robert had 20 bastards running around, but from what Stannis learned, the shit Joffrey had most of them murdered, and only one was rumored to escape the lion's jaws. Where that one was now was anyone's guess at this point. What troubles you, my king? Asked Melisandre while she leaned over his shoulder and looked at the message on the table. My brother had a son. A long-lost son. He's only just returned to Westeros and kicked out the pretender through his right by blood and the older sibling, commented Stannis, knowing the rules of blood and right succession enforced Robert's legitimate son claim to the Iron Throne. The blood is tainted, my king. The lion's blood from his mother makes him unfit to rule the 7 kingdoms. What his mother did to have the other 3 children was madness similar to the Targaryens, your grace. For if she could lay with her own blood and sire such abominations, who is to say the madness did not spread to this one too? Are you going to bend the knee, swear fealty to this new future mad king? You do not possess the madness. You also have the blood of a king in you just as your brothers do, but now with King Robert dead, you are the one worthy of the Iron Throne. Not this tainted child sired between the stag and the lion, whispered Melisandre while she took the message from Stannis and threw it into the nearby fire to watch it burn. He is my eldest brother's legitimate son. Even if what you say is true, I cannot raise my banner against him. The rules of succession are clear. Not only is the new king sitting on the Iron Throne Robert's son by blood, but is protected by the rules of succession. I can only be king if he were to die before siring a legitimate heir of his own in the near future after he marries, remarked Stannis while Melisandre let out a chuckle. So? Use the rules in your favor, my king. Slay the tainted one. Take the throne by force as your older brother did against the Targaryens. Slay the future Mad Baratheon king before his strength can grow and he gathers the other lords to King's Landing and infects them with his madness. Madness. End his rule before it can truly begin and be the king that saved the world from the madness of this creature who calls himself your brother's son, said Melisandre while she stared into the flames to see what her god would show her. Sadly, her Lord of Light refused to give her any guidance at the moment, but she was confident he would. Even if I wanted to kill my nephew to claim the Iron Throne, I don't have the numbers to take the city. I need a massive army to take King's Landing and right now Renly has the larger force. If anyone will bend the knee and swear fealty to the young king, it will be him. All the bannermen of my house will support the new king on the Iron Throne and I will be seen as a usurper like my brother was against the Targaryens. No one will rally to my camp, even if they did convert to your religion, said Stannis angrily, knowing with Naruto being Robert's rightful, and only, legitimate heir, he had no chance of getting his army to fight against his nephew. So, use me and my magic, your grace. Slay Renly and claim his army. Slay your nephew and claim the Iron Throne. I can give you both. The Lord of Light has chosen you. He does not have to follow the rules of men regarding the line of succession. What he wants is to bring about a world where all are united under his greatness. And by giving him what my God wants, I can give you everything you want. Everything you were denied by your older brother. What your younger brother is trying to deny you by rallying others to him to be the next king. If he cannot become king, your brother will seek to influence your nephew, and further put you lower in the position power. You, who should have been rewarded for your efforts in the last 2 wars. You, who held your own in a siege against House Tyrell at your brother's command, yet was denied your birthright. Your oldest brother insulted you. Slighted you. Your youngest tries to usurp you. Your nephew will seek to deny any claim of power you deserve to have, just as his father did all those years ago. They have all committed unspeakable crimes against you, my king. And for each crime, the punishment for such things is death. Royalty or not, regardless if they are your kin, whispered Melisandre, knowing her words would worm their way into Stannis' mind and he would listen to her. If I do this, I have to take out Renly first. He has the numbers to best me thanks to his farce of a marriage to Margaery Tyrell. Once my brother is out of the way, I will focus my attention back on my nephew, said Stannis while the Red Woman nodded. Of course. One usurper at a time. And each usurper must be handled differently, your grace. Renly through me. Naruto through your army. In the end, the Lord of Light will get what he wants, and all will be well, said Melisandre calmly, knowing she could guide these events using the flames and her magic. With Renly sometime later. Are you certain of this? Asked Renly while walking with Catelyn by his side. By the mother. My son has no interest in the Iron Throne, said Catelyn while she saw Renly nodding, knowing Catelyn Tully Stark was a woman of her word. Then I see no reason for hostility toward us. Your son can still call himself king in the north and control all the lands north of Moat Cailin, provided an oath of fealty is given, said Renly while they walked into his tent and he poured himself some wine. Brienne of Tarth standing guard at the entrance/exit of the tent. And the wording of the oath? Asked Catelyn curiously. The same one Ned Stark gave to Robert 18 years ago. Nothing less. After all, Cat, their friendship held the kingdom together. Why not ours? Replied Renly before he looked over some sealed messages now in his hand and frowned at one addressed to him by the spider himself. What is it? Asked Catelyn when she saw Renly frown at one message in particular. It is a message from King's Landing. From the spider no less, said Renly in confusion since he didn't think the Master of Whispers would send him anything. Lord Varys? Why? Asked Catelyn in surprise. Yes. And as to the why, I don't know. Which is unusual since sending me this would be an act of treason against the current king on the Iron Throne, said Renly while opening the parchment and began to read. He's a false king. Joffrey has none of your older brother's blood in him, said Catelyn since her son like Renly had received one of the many ravens sent throughout the Seven Kingdoms about Joffrey's true parentage. I agree. Only this message from the spider says that Joffrey is no longer a king. In fact, according to this, Robert's true son has returned to claim it, said Renly in surprise. True son? But Robert's real children are bastards. None of them had the right to claim the throne, replied Catelyn in surprise. No. According to the spider, there was one. Robert had one child with Cersei before she had Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen. But my brother said he was stillborn. From what this letter has revealed, the child in question did not die that night, but kept hidden to all, and eventually sent away to Essos. Apparently, the eyes being mismatched and one being the eye of a Targaryen was too much for Robert to take, and had him sent away. Cersei even tried to have the handmaiden responsible for the boy to sell him to the masters at Astapor and become an Unsullied. But the handmaiden chose not to obey the queen and instead raised the child herself. Now he has returned, claimed the Iron Throne, and has now asked for myself along with Stannis to stop the fighting before it escalates further. That we unite under the banner of King Naruto of House Baratheon and punish those who are responsible for the chaos that is about to unfold if allowed to continue, said Renly while he reread the letter over again. And it's true? Robert does have a legitimate son? Asked Catelyn since it could be some kind of trick by Varys. The spider said the one red and one purple eye of the child nearly 20 years ago were the dead giveaway to prove this man claiming to be Naruto of House Baratheon is in fact the same child. The eyes are the most unusual in all the Seven Kingdoms and no one short of Naruto's children could have a remote chance of having them. Also, according to what the spider says, the eyes themselves before their changes were a shade of blue worthy of any Baratheon, and Robert himself called the boy his son, said Renly while he digested this information within his own mind and what this meant for himself. What does this mean for you and House Tyrell? For the alliance with the North? Asked Catelyn with Renly shrugging. Nothing has changed. Your son and I will ally against House Lannister once we have dealt with my brother tomorrow. We will march against the Lannisters next, we win a decisive victory, head to King's Landing, prove ourselves to my nephew, and bring about peace to the Seven Kingdoms. I'm actually quite interested in meeting him, said Renly like it was completely simple steps to take to win. And this King Naruto? What does Lord Varys say about him? Asked Catelyn since she feared for her daughters in the city and what this man would do to them. For all she knew, Naruto was crueler than Joffrey, but hid his tendencies better. From what Lord Varys has written here, my nephew wishes to be a kind, fair, yet firm ruler of the Seven Kingdoms, and bring about peace to the realm of men. But to do this though, the king needs this war with House Lannister to end quickly, and before winter comes. Apparently, my nephew embraces the house motto of your husband, and agrees with you when saying winter is coming, remarked Renly before letting out a sigh and drank some more wine. I must send a raven to King's Landing. To have the king return my daughters unharmed to the north. If this king is truly merciful and just as Varys claims, he listens to the words of a worried mother, and will let them go, said Catelyn knowing her pleas for mercy to this new king would be a test on whether he was a good man or a monster to pretending to be one. I'll let you send one tonight. I'm a bit curious about what my nephew looks like since my imagination regarding what an actual child my brother and Cersei sired is honestly hard to make out, said Renly with a smile on his face since the idea of his brother and Cersei having an actual child by blood was difficult to imagine. Especially after learning the truth that none of Cersei's 3 children following Naruto were not Robert's at all. Unfortunately, the discussion was interrupted by a strong wind blowing into the tent, distracting everyone in it, and as a result, no one saw the attack before it was too late. For Stannis! Exclaimed the shadow demon after it stabbed Renly in the back. No! Guards! Yelled Catelyn while she and Brienne were shocked to see such a creature exist outside of stories, myths, and legends. Brienne charged the creature just as the guards came into the room and saw the shadow demon with their own eyes. The sword she wielded went right through the monster, but the large woman knew the face on the demonic creature was that of Stannis Baratheon. She had heard the rumors of the Red Woman from Essos converting Stannis the Lord of Light religion practiced over in Essos, but never thought magic openly existed, or at least not anymore with the loss of the dragons. But to see a byproduct of it quite literally staring her in the face before it faded away was most unsettling. By the gods, what is that? Asked one of the men who ran into the tent and pointing a sword at the creature. The night is dark and full of terrors, rasped the shadow demon before it vanished into the darkness of the night. How could this have happened? I didn't think such horrible creatures even existed in this world. I thought such powers were only stories told to keep little girls and boys obedient and out of trouble, thought Catelyn before she was quickly approached by Brienne. We have to leave Lady Stark. When word spreads throughout the camp of Renly's death, all who are not Tyrell bannermen will flock to Stannis. They will no doubt wish to prove themselves to Stannis by handing us over to him. I fear what would happen if the Red Woman convinces Stannis to leave us in her clutches, whispered Brienne, knowing with Renly gone, the Baratheon bannermen would move to serve the next one in the house they were sworn to serve. We must inform the Tyrells. The Baratheon bannermen here might try to attack them now that the alliance and marriage between houses is void, said Catelyn with Brienne nodding, since it would not be honorable to let a house like the Tyrells to perish in a surprise attack by those they trusted to be allies. I agree. But we need to get the letter Renly had in his hands just before his death. If he received one from the spider, I will wager Stannis has one too, but chose to ignore it, said Catelyn while Brienne nodded and quickly got the message written by Varys to Renly before they ran out of the tent to find the Tyrells. King's Landing Red Keep small council chambers days later. Renly is dead. As I predicted, said Naruto with a sigh and closed his eyes in mourning for his uncle he never knew, but heard good things about. While the two never met, Naruto had heard only good things about the man, and did his job well despite his secret vices. But Naruto wasn't one to judge him regarding such things. Naruto had done worse when in Essos. Killing people in the fighting pits. Killing people when he was with the Second Sons and the Golden Company. Killing people in general, really. Yes, Your Grace. Word has spread of a shadow demon of sorts being responsible for the attack and murder of your uncle Renly. Several Baratheon bannermen guarding his tent witnessed the creature, as well as Catelyn Tully Stark and Brienne of Tarth. Before she fled back to Robb Stark's encampment, Lady Stark warned House Tyrell of Renly's death to prevent their army from being wiped out by their now former Baratheon allies. As for Brienne of Tarth, she went with Lady Stark, and is acting as her bodyguard, said Varys with Naruto sighing yet again, but it was clear to the spider that the king in front of him approved. You would think the bannermen of House Baratheon would oppose fighting for Stannis once they learned of you being Robert's son and heir. For him to fight you with this army makes no sense, remarked Tyrion in confusion. The Red Woman has poisoned his mind. She's convinced him to take the Iron Throne like my father did against the Targaryens, said Naruto, since that was not a good thing in his mind. But wouldn't the bannermen of House Baratheon fight for you over him? Asked Tyrion, since he figured House Baratheon's bannermen would side with Naruto given how he was Robert's heir and now the king of the Seven Kingdoms. They have no reason to be loyal to me simply on that principle, Tyrion. I haven't been in Westeros since I was a 4-year-old child. Hidden from the world during that time. Only a handful of people knew of my existence. Half of them wanted me dead or forever gone from this side of the world. Stannis has been around these bannermen, fought beside all these men, and is my father's brother with combat experience in leading men into battle. My house bannermen have no reason to side with me over him simply on royal blood alone. And Stannis himself is of royal blood too, given he is my father's brother and as such could be king legitimately in his own way upon my death. Something I would wager he will wish to see happening when attacking King's Landing and sacking it like Tywin Lannister successfully did all those years ago, said Naruto while he looked at the two men in the room currently being the only men trustworthy of getting things done. I hate to ask this question given how I am also dreading the answer, but when we are attacked by Stannis, can we repel him with our own forces? Asked Tyrion with Naruto looking at Varys for a second before looking back at the youngest of Tywin's children. It won't be easy, but if we plan everything, right down to the last detail, it can be done. We can win, said Naruto, knowing a defense of a city like King's Landing required the right number of people, the right number of defenses, and just the right strategy. How? Not to question your military prowess, Your Grace, but your uncle's forces are now much larger. He now has the ships and the men needed to take the city, said Tyrion while Naruto looked deep in thought. My uncle is a military commander and as such will act like one, which means he will need time to prepare his now much larger army. So, at best, we have 2, maybe 3 more days before Uncle Stannis comes with his army ready to end all of our lives. During my time over in Essos and even in Bravos, I learned not only how to fight, but how to strategize, how to defeat my enemy without raising my sword until it was necessary. In order to defeat my uncle, I must think like him. Anticipate his movements and figure out how to counter his actions with our own, said Naruto with Varys and Tyrion nodding. He knows the city well, Your Grace. No doubt Stannis intends to hit the weakest point of King's Landing, which in this case would be by sea. As the master of ships, your uncle has access to a very large fleet, and now an equally large number of men to manage all of them, said Varys while Naruto nodded in agreement. Which means we have to counter his fleet with something greater. His fleet cannot dock on the shores of King's Landing. Once they do, we will be overrun by sheer numbers, and our walls or gates won't last long in the process. We need to cripple his fleet before any of them make landfall. We also need to figure out where my uncle would send his fleet to land where he could strike the hardest at our weakest position, said Naruto, knowing Stannis would strike at an area where his men could break into the city and overwhelm its defenders. Naruto knew this because it was exact same thing he would have done in Stannis's place if leading the attack. I have been reading up on the military history of the 7 kingdoms, Your Grace, and I found one key aspect in the history books. One that may give us an idea of where Stannis may strike us in order to achieve victory, said Tyrion, who had brought the book for just this sort of meeting. What aspect are you referring to, Tyrion? Asked Naruto curiously. King's Landing is well defended. Even in its current state of decay, showing despite our efforts to reverse it. But looking at the history of the city since its creation, I noticed in all the battle waged to take it, only one place has been considered to be the ultimate weak spot. One that is usually well guarded by the Royal Navy and under the command of the Master of Ships. The Mud Gate, said Tyrion while pointing it out in the book from all the different wars waged around the city. Yes. I see your point, Uncle. Mud Gate itself is weak on a defensive level. Very weak. It is usually well protected by a vast fleet of ships, but with most of them now in my uncle Stannis's possession, the Mud Gate is an easy target. Which means our enemy will strike here with ships and men to overpower the gate, flood the city with men, and sack King's Landing like it was going out of style, replied Naruto while reading over all the various, yet relevant pages Tyrion had marked for reading. Now begs one question, Your Grace. How do we stop the massive fleet of ships from landing and unloading wave after wave of soldiers at the Mud Gate? Asked Varys with Naruto frowning. Varys, as the Master of Whispers, let us assume that you know almost, if not all the secrets within the walls of King's Landing. Would I be assuming correctly? Said Naruto with Varys nodding. I do, Your Grace. I know many secrets of the city, as I felt it was a crucial part of my role in being Master of Whispers, answered Varys with Naruto nodding while looking over a map of the city he just got off a nearby table. Which means you would know where to get something dangerous. Something we can use against Stannis, his fleet, and the army sailing our way. I trust you do know of such a means to use in defense of this city? That my faith in your knowledge of King's Landing spanning well over several decades was not misplaced? Asked Naruto with Varys simply smiling a knowing smile at him. I know of one such weapon, Your Grace. However, I wish to inform you such a weapon will most likely be used only once, and in addition, it is highly unstable, replied Varys with Naruto looking at him intently. Given our odds of being overrun by Baratheon troops before we are all killed, violently butchered, or possibly burned alive by a crazy Lord of Light priestess, I'll take whatever secret you believe will help us win over that, said Naruto with Varys nodding, since the idea of being killed in such ways were not something the men in this room wanted. Not to ignore any possible advantage here, but shouldn't we see if there is a chance to gain possible allies outside of King's Landing? To bolster our odds of survival, much less victory, in this future battle? Surely the Tyrells will side with us? Or the North? Maybe Dorne? Given Myrcella will marry Prince Doran's son and you yourself have some kind of warrior bond with Prince Oberyn, House Martell might come to our aid if asked, said Tyrion while Naruto made a noise. House Martell won't do anything. While Prince Oberyn respects me, neither he nor his brother will commit troops to fight for the son of Robert Baratheon. Remember, my father did not disapprove of what Tywin Lannister ordered the Mountain to do to Elia Martell, or her beloved children for that matter. In fact, from what Varys told me of the incident when I regretfully asked about it, my father approved of their deaths. I did not wish to believe my surrogate mother Kushina when she told me the story, but with Varys confirming it, well, I wouldn't help me either if I was one of the two princes. As for the Tyrells, they hate all things Baratheon and only sided with Renly because the army he already had, and they thought a queen from their bloodline would be made through the marrying of Lady Margaery to my uncle. Now with Renly dead, the Tyrells just have to sit back, do nothing, and watch the war progress until the time is right to strike in the best possible manner for them. As for the North, they are too busy fighting the Lannisters, and from what Varys has told me earlier this morning the Greyjoys have set sail to attack the North. A large chunk of Robb Stark's men has returned to repel them, so his troops won't be aiding us anytime soon, said Naruto, knowing they were going to be in a tight spot here when the fighting came. And asking my father for help would be out of the question too. Not to mention that the veil won't help given how we now have Peter Baelish rotting in the black cells for his failed escape attempt out of the city, added Tyrion, knowing his not-so-loving father Tywin Lannister would sooner betray Naruto in the end to put Joffrey on the Iron Throne or make Naruto owe him a huge debt outside of gold. No doubt my mother has informed her father of my actions and is demanding he do something about me before my presence as king starts to gain momentum among the small folk. Not that he could give how trying would expose his troops to the north if they get wind of him moving to fight Uncle Stannis or myself, said Naruto, knowing Cersei would do just that and lie about what really happened just so her father, his grandfather, would do something violent against him. So, calling for aid is out. Which means whatever Varys knows about the city, combined with our own understanding of war through experience, and what was written about the past is our only hope of this city, well, let's just come right out and say it. Not getting fucked up the ass, along with everyone living in it, said Tyrion with Naruto and Varys nodding. It won't be easy, Tyrion. But something tells me whatever Varys knows, it is one hell of a secret. And I would wager it is just the edge we need. But first, we need to fortify the entire city in the off chance our assumptions about my uncle were completely wrong. I need to speak to all the mason workers and building experts within the city about going over the city to reinforce its overall structure. Especially the Mud Gate. Tyrion, go with Varys to get whatever secret weapon King's Landing possesses, and do so quietly. While Varys has a vast spy network, it is not the only network around, and I don't want someone within the walls of this city suddenly becoming fearful of Stannis to spy for him in the hopes of being granted some measure of mercy for selling us out, said Naruto with both men nodding since they could sort things out on their end of the plan without him. At once, Your Grace, said Very, knowing exactly where to go to get exactly what they needed for the defense of King's Landing. Once you have what you need, come see me about it, and how we can use this weapon on my uncle's fleet. The fewer ships he has, the fewer men he can command. And while I do not wish to kill my house's bannermen, Uncle Stannis should have known better. We gave him and Renly a chance to have peace with each other, unite under my rule, deal with the war between House Stark and House Lannister before things got worse. While I don't know if Renly considered agreeing to my terms, the fact Stannis ended his life using dark magic makes it irrelevant, replied Naruto with Tyrion and Varys nodding. Given what I know of your uncle Renly when he served on the small council, I am sure he would have taken the offer, your grace, said Varys, since he had known Renly for a long time, since Robert appointed him as the master of laws on the small council. I would like to think so too, Varys. Now I'll never know firsthand. In any case, we need to prepare the city for the inevitable. We have much to do in so little time, said Naruto before he stood up, and the others did as well to carry out their duties. They had work to do. Stark encampment sometime later. So, the message sent to Renly Baratheon was real. That is interesting, said Roose of House Bolton while reading the two messages sent by Varys to Robb Stark and Renly Baratheon to compare the messages for any falsities made by the spider. Interesting is an understatement, Lord Bolton. If the spider sent us this and still has his head in the process, it means this new king sitting on the Iron Throne is indeed Robert Baratheon's true son and heir. The fighting between houses should come to an end. Not increase, said Robb while seeing the other lords nodding. From what we have been able to learn, Tywin Lannister is not pleased in the slightest by this latest development. No doubt Cersei has informed him of the new king's treachery in taking the Iron Throne from Joffrey while claiming this Naruto is not hers, much less Robert Baratheon's son, said Roose Bolton with Robb nodding, since Cersei would say such things to her father to get the man to continue the war. We cannot worry about the Lannister as much as we would like, I'm afraid. What news back in the north? Asked Robb while wishing to know if his troops made it in time to repel the Greyjoy fleet. We received a raven not that long ago, your grace. Our troops were able to reinforce key areas of the north those sea cunt Ironborn planned to attack. We covered a large area of the north along the coast, but our troops were still unsure which areas would require the heaviest defense. Fortunately, we still have some of the old veterans during the Greyjoy rebellion still alive back in the north, and they helped provided some insight on areas we might have missed, said John Umber, knowing a few of the older veterans too injured to fight could still help in providing some insight in where the Greyjoy fleet might hit the hardest. Are there any more men willing to return to the north to reinforce its defenses? Asked Robb, knowing some would like to do that, but others still wished to press forward. I don't think it is wise to send any more troops back to the north, your grace. We already sent a little over a quarter of the army back to defend it. If we send more back, it will only embolden the Lannisters to take the offensive, said Roose Bolton with Robb reluctantly nodding in agreement. He's right, Robb. As much as I would wish more men be sent back to defend it against the Greyjoys, you can't send too many of your forces back north, said Catelyn while she saw Robb let out a heavy sigh. Fine. What about the Kingslayer? Asked Robb, knowing their prize was the only thing keeping Tywin Lannister at bay. Alive. Filthy and stinking like shit, but still alive, said Lord Rickard Karstark grumbled while Robb nodded. Good. He needs to be kept alive and whole. I don't care about his smell, but we can't risk him being damaged. Tywin Lannister will pay any price to get his son back, but the value is only as good as the man's physical condition. Double the guards around his prison cell if you have to, Lord Karstark. Jaime Lannister will try anything to get out and return to his father, said Robb while Lord Karstark nodded. My son is watching him now. But I can easily put more men around his cell to ensure he doesn't get any ideas on escaping, said Lord Karstark, knowing the Kingslayer would try something soon and wished to ensure his son did not fall victim to the lion's treachery. Good. House Umber will also add some men of their own too. For now, we are going to move cautiously, and stay on the defensive. We need to keep our supplies from becoming too thin and wait for word from the north about possibly reinforcing them should the Greyjoy fleet somehow smash through our defenses, said Robb while many nodded in full agreement, since defending the north that was their home was important to every man here. They needed to be careful at this stage of this war. One false move and they would lose too much with little to gain. King's Landing days later. Naruto had been busy. Non-stop busy. He had gathered all the architects, mason workers, and blacksmiths in the city to him to explain the situation to all of them. He didn't bother to sugarcoat the situation to them about what was heading their way with Stannis and his army intent of sacking the city. Naruto explained that the sacking wouldn't be enough for Stannis like it had been for Tywin Lannister and his army 20 years ago. He had revealed to them that the majority of the city would burn thanks to the Red Woman who converted Stannis to the Lord of Light religion. He told them if the city fell, a lot of people would be burned as a sacrifice. It didn't matter who was offered up. The rich. The poor. Men. Women. Possibly even children. It would be like the Mad King all over again, but with religious reasons attached, which made such actions even worse. Which is why he needed their help to strengthen the walls of King's Landing and any other place their skills could be put to use. Not that anyone brought into this massive project would resist in the given time frame, as no one wanted to die, much less be burned alive as a religious sacrifice. Not only that, but Naruto got Sandor Clegane to up the training of the City Watch, and had Bronn working with the Kingsguard with what time they had with both men rotating the training between the two groups. Sandor was a bit unsure of Naruto at first, which was understandable given the Hound had been around the young man's father, who had become a drunk for a king, and the giant Clegane was not impressed. Then there was Joffrey being the sadistic little shit he was with people, and his whiny voice made you want to stab your own ears with a rusty knife. But Naruto had proven himself in being a competent ruler in the short time he was king of the Seven Kingdoms. He quickly showed his commitment in wanting to help all the people in King's Landing and make their lives better. The first was dealing with the poor constantly begging for food and their need for shelter they did not possess. This was dealt with using the second situation Naruto had to face, which was getting them jobs. Naruto quickly set up job posts for those looking to either learn new skills or put the skills they already had to use. The latter who didn't have jobs either due to the war and they were refugees seeking a safe haven or because the former master of coin had used his own financial influence to shut down stores, shops, and other honest places of business for the more seedy ones which he also secretly controlled. Speaking of the former master of coin, Naruto had found out the man had tried another escape attempt by trying to bribe the guards with wealth, and plenty of the most exotic whores in all the Seven Kingdoms. Under other circumstances, had Robert still been alive, or Joffrey was still king for that matter, these men would have set the man free, and gotten away with it. But after Naruto of House Baratheon sat on the Iron Throne, the pursuit of the corrupt, and the punishing of those who committed such crimes put the fear of being punished into them. An example would be when all the men of the City Watch, who helped their late Lord Commander Janos Slynt betray Ned Stark when Joffrey took the Iron Throne as its king, were given a choice. Death? Or the wall? Some of the men had tried a third option in the form of resisting, but were met instantly crushed by Naruto himself. He drew his crimson Valyrian sword named it Akatsuki in the old Valyrian tongue meaning New Dawn and sliced them all to pieces before demanding if anyone else wanted to resist his decision regarding traitors. None of them did. In fact, the remaining former City Watch members instantly on their knees, surrendering, and begged to be sent to the wall over facing his sword Akatsuki with him as its wielder. As for the sword itself, Naruto felt such a name was appropriate given how it shined in the light at just the right angle to signify a new dawn. The men guarding Littlefinger didn't want to get on the new king's bad side and all over a promise of golden whores, which the guards knew the man could not produce given how they knew Peter Baelish had all his assets seized and the brothels were put under new management. As such, the former master of coin could not give the guards gold or women he promised them. Their lives were not worth empty promises by a snake of a man who betrayed the late hand of the king Ned Stark. You are becoming a real pain in the ass, Littlefinger. Another escape attempt? I should chop off your legs just to ensure you can't escape from this cell, said Naruto while he stood in front of the chained Peter Baelish, who looked like he had seen better days. The former master of coin was, for the lack of a better word, filthy. His clothes were filthy. His face was sporting an unruly beard. His hair was longer and oily from the lack of a bath. If someone could see the man appear in a before and after setting, you wouldn't think they were the same man. I have been unjustly imprisoned. You didn't think I would sit idly by and be kept locked away in here, did you? Questioned Peter Baelish with Naruto narrowing his eyes at him. Unjustly? You betrayed the hand of the king. You allowed the crown to be bankrupt and owed money to House Lannister and the Iron Bank. I have been gathering all the information and evidence I need to have you executed for past crimes, Littlefinger. I actually have more than enough to do it now, said Naruto with Peter looking up at him with a smug look on his face. But you won't. You need me in your back pocket, remarked Peter with Naruto scoffing at him. Don't flatter yourself. I need you alive for other reasons. Reasons I'm sure you already know about, but don't think I know. Namely your secret asset in the Vale by the name of Lisa Tully Aaron, said Naruto while Peter's smirk left him for a second. So, you know. The spider told you, remarked Peter with Naruto nodding. He filled in the blanks for me after Pycelle confessed to being a conspirator in killing Jon Arryn and named names. Specifically, you and Lisa Arryn, said Naruto with Peter scowled knowing the former Grand Maester would sell them all out to save his old and worthless life. Ned Stark was right about one thing, Pycelle talks too much, said Peter Baelish while finding it ironic those words by Ned Stark would come back to haunt him. I'm sure he does. But he confessed enough for me to know what I needed to know. Lisa Arryn would never have poisoned her husband unless you told her to do it. You knew Jon was snooping around, trying to figure out why Joffrey looked nothing like Robert when all of his bastards did. It was only a matter of time before he put everything together and told my father the truth. And if that happened, well, my mother wouldn't be alive, right? And having the Queen of the Seven Kingdoms in your back pocket to use in a pinch was something you couldn't let go. So naturally, you got all the people involved in this little bloodline conspiracy of a horror together, told them the only way to keep this piece of news away from my father was to have Jon Arryn killed, and hoped the next hand of the king chosen by the king was someone you could easily manipulate, said Naruto, as he saw Peter scowled at having the truth of his schemes called out by the king, and the king being the son of Robert Baratheon. Yet Peter Baelish still had one more move to make. You do realize my imprisonment will no doubt reach Lady Arryn by now. If she hasn't already called her banners to march on King's Landing, she will be doing it soon once Stannis is done sacking the city, and killing you for the Iron Throne. She and I were quite close growing up, want to ensure I was rescued with the full might of the Vale, said Peter with Naruto smirking now before he moved beyond the man's little finger could see him and pinned the shocked man to the cell wall with a hand to his throat. The king's eyes glowing in the darkness of the cell that it actually terrified Peter Baelish something fierce deep within the dark corners of his mind. Even if that were true, I have already put plans into place to ensure that even in the off chance you escape from King's Landing, you're a dead man walking. The crimes you have done, the proof behind it, I have it all ready to be sent to all the major houses throughout the Seven Kingdoms. Do you really think you can walk out of the black cells of King's Landing and think all will be well? Stannis? If he does become king, who do you think will among the first to burn as a sacrifice to the Lord of Light? What's that you are trying to say? You would go east to the Vale? Your Lady Lisa will be cast out of the Vale by the lords there, and her son Robin will be forced into exile on suspicion of her son not being Jon's child, said Naruto while Peter's eyes widened slightly. The dark blonde-haired king saw it, and knew his mark was dead on about the man going even that far to secure a pawn in such a high place of position. What is this feeling? This feeling of terror and dread? Thought Peter with his eyes now filled with confusion over what he was experiencing. The North itself will destroy you for betraying Ned Stark. The West maybe? You think Tywin of House Lannister will protect you? Ha! The Lannisters will not receive you simply because you were the one manipulating the Queen Regent and being your pawn, and they will take that slight very seriously. House Tully will order you be killed on sight at Riverrun for your betrayal of one Catelyn Tully Stark. The South and the Reach will see you for the snake you really are and kill you the moment you set foot into their domain. Dorne? I'm good friends with Prince Oberyn, and I'm sure he would have no problem running his poison spear through your chest and take great joy in seeing you die. So, by all means, Littlefinger, do try to escape. For once you do, everyone who is everyone in the Seven Kingdoms will be itching to personally take your head, whispered Naruto before he dropped Littlefinger on his butt and walked out of the room to let a slightly terrified Peter Baelish think about his words very carefully in his mind. And realized with a cold bitter truth that the king was 100% correct in his statement. Peter Baelish had no allies. No friends. No one who could help him. Even if he had the needed blackmail to get a few lords to help him, it was only temporary. A few supplies, a horse, and if if he were luck, a stay in a castle for the night. Maybe 2 days if the Lord was feeling particularly generous. But Peter knew such a thing was not possible given the information that would spread throughout the 7 kingdoms. No one would take him in. A bounty would be placed on his head for any sellsword to claim before he reached the nearest port to take him to Essos or Braavos. Even going to Essos or Braavos was out of the question since Peter had no money to use in the first place. Not that gold or silver would matter at this point since no one would want to take the money of a man like him. The king was right. This cell was his only protection from those outside of it who wanted him dead. Lannisport at the moment. Cersei scowled heavily at the outside world from her chair near the window. The sun was shining, the birds were chirping, and the people were happy. Well, happy as happy can be given a war between House Lannister and House Stark. Refugees came into the city, seeking a safe haven due to their lives, homes, and families were destroyed. Hoping to rebuild their lives and survive the war along with the long winter rumored to come now that the longest summer in history had officially ended. How she hated them. All of them. Every single life down below. Moving around. Going from place to place. The mere sight of them made her want to puke. The mere thought of her being in the same city, much less the same room with only a handful of these peasants made her stomach want to retch. This was no place for her. No place for a Lannister of her standing. No place for queen or even a queen regent. Cersei knew that the only place for her was right at the center of all power in the 7 kingdoms, and it was a King's Landing. It was the Iron Throne. Not here. Not Lannisport or Casterly Rock. Not here where the power was only a fraction to that of King's Landing was located along with the seat of power that was the Iron Throne. An Iron Throne where her firstborn son, Robert's true son, was sitting on and making it perfectly clear he wanted nothing to do with her. Cersei had brought him screaming into the world and yet he had the nerve to scold her like she was a child. Her. She may have ordered his life be that of a eunuch slave soldier, but as his mother, and the queen, it was damn well within her right to make him whatever she wished. And right now, that just so happened to involve Robert's son she had with the man along with anyone else connected to her failed pig of a husband. She had whispered concerns to Joffrey about Robert's bastards possibly challenging him for the Iron Throne since they were of her husband's blood. It had happened before in the past with the Targaryens and commented to her son that if they were not all killed, the threat of usurping his rule as king was still in existence. Speaking of her son Joffrey, who she considered to be her one true firstborn son, the young lion was sitting on his throne commissioned to aid him in ruling over Lannisport as its king. Cersei had gone to her father after fleeing King's Landing, slightly wishing she could take Myrcella and Tommen with her before forgetting about them. She knew deep down that Naruto would never harm his half-siblings and Cersei needed to focus on the one child she needed to secure supreme power when the time was right. She had told her father what had happened, calling Naruto a pretender, and was not the real firstborn child lost all those years ago. Add to the fact Myrcella and Tommen were now hostages within King's Landing from what Cersei described only enraged Tywin Lannister even further. It took some considerable effort on Cersei's part to make the story she told her father appear believable. All the crying, begging, pleading for her father to believe she had been wronged by this false pretender of a king sitting on the Iron Throne. He had looked at her with a great deal of scorn and scrutinizing since he was not one to fool easily. But she was his daughter and Cersei knew that he knew she would not dare lie to him about such things. Which was why Cersei's lie worked after pleading her hardest to convince him to march his army against her enemies in the north and against Naruto in King's Landing when time permitted itself. At the moment, Tywin Lannister was with his army, prodding the defenses of the Wolf's army for a weakness, and had yet to find one. Not only that, but Jaime was still a prisoner of the north, and making sure no one outside of the northern bannermen could help him escape. Knowing her father, he wouldn't dare risk Jaime's life, and might even seek out a way to negotiate with the north by paying some kind of ransom for her twin brother. Of course, Cersei herself felt Jaime's capture was a personal slight against her, and wanted all of the north to die. Not only was her love a prisoner of the north, being reduced in strength, and glamour a lion like himself should show, but the man's substitute for warming her bed was not what you would call great in bed. He was enthusiastic once she forced him to do her bidding, but Lancel was no Jaime when it came to fucking her body. Under normal circumstances, she dared not risk fucking Lancel since her power base in Lannisport was not as strong as it had been in King's Landing, so keeping an eye out for spies or agents of her father in the city. But she was a woman with needs. Needs that Robert had never met. Could not meet. The same with Lancel, but he was here while Jaime was not. Sadly, only Jaime had met them, and it made her want the man even more when he was eventually rescued. If he was rescued. At the same time, word came from the small folk about Stannis somehow besting Renly's much larger army by somehow having the younger Baratheon killed. Not that it mattered to Cersei, since one less Baratheon in the world the better for her, and if the gods were indeed on her side, Naruto would be next, with Stannis somehow falling at the same time. One way or another, Cersei would see her eldest son die, and place her pure son Joffrey on the Iron Throne, with the Queen Regent being the true ruler of the Seven Kingdoms. Chapter 4: The Battle of Baratheons. Olenna Tyrell, also known as the Queen of Thorns, was not amused. If anything, she was one step away from grabbing a sword and gutting someone with it to satisfy her desire to lash out. Provided her gracefully aging body would allow it. But that wasn't the point nor the reason for her anger. Olenna Tyrell was angry because someone, namely one Stannis of House Baratheon, had done what no one thought he would do, or was capable of doing, to his own family. Stannis had murdered his younger brother Renly. He had become a kinslayer. Oh, Stannis didn't do the deed directly. The man wasn't that foolish. Olenna knew enough about the Baratheon to know such an act was not something Stannis would do openly for others to know. And while no one could openly pin Stannis for the crime, the man was the only one who actually benefited from Renly's death, and would gain the bannermen of House Baratheon to his cause. Olenna had heard of the Red Woman, who preached about the Lord of Light, and how she was some kind of sorceress capable of doing the seemingly impossible in the name of her god. Olenna didn't wish to believe magic of the ancient world had returned to this point in time. It just didn't seem possible, since magic had died out with the dragons. But word of Daenerys Targaryen having 3 dragons on her side, and now this news of this shadow demon with Stannis Baratheon's face on it, just proved the two were not only intertwined in terms of existence, but both were back in the world once more. Olenna didn't know if she could consider that a good or bad thing at the moment. You were fortunate that Catelyn Stark and Brienne of Tarth were there to warn you of this, my child. To think Stannis would go so far, and with the way he did it. No one can openly accuse him of the act, even if he was the only one to benefit from it, commented Olenna to her granddaughter Margaery while Loras and Mace Tyrell was sitting beside them. We were so close to achieving our dream of putting a Tyrell on the Iron Throne, and now such a hope is lost to us, said Loras, knowing the main reason Margaery agreed to this arranged marriage with Renly was to get a future king born of Tyrell blood to rule over the Seven Kingdoms one day. They were well aware of Renly's tendency to be with men, which played perfectly into their plans since Loras was Renly's secret lover. The plan called for Margaery to marry Renly, binding both houses together in the eyes of gods and men, while Loras was made a knight of high standing, and to watch over the king and queen. At the same time, Loras would assist Renly in his bedding of Margaery, and she could give him a child. Namely a son, who would become prince, and future king of the Seven Kingdoms. Unfortunately, Renly's recent death ruined that plan abruptly, and violently, with a demon made of shadows of all things ending his life. Not necessarily Loras. Word has reached me from various reliable sources of the current king sitting on the Iron Throne also being a Baratheon and is Robert Baratheon's firstborn son, said Olenna, with Loras and Margaery looking confused. You mean King Joffrey? Questioned Margaery while Olenna shook her head. No, my child. Not him. Besides, from what I've heard about Joffrey, he isn't even a true Baratheon despite his mother's claims to the contrary. No, I'm speaking of King Naruto of House Baratheon, currently ruling in King's Landing. Word has it, he was the stillborn child Robert and Cersei had prior to Joffrey's birth, but it was a lie due to the baby having some Targaryen features from Robert's grandmother's side of the family, which surfaced right after the child's birth, said Olenna while she saw Margaery was interested in this piece of news. Does he have a specific preference in terms of women? Or is he like Renly with a need for men? Asked Marjorie, knowing they might have changed depending on what Naruto liked in terms of preferences. Sadly, I don't know, child. No one seems to know. Though I suppose with the war being an issue and Stannis getting ready to march on King's Landing to take the Iron Throne from his nephew could be the reason behind it, answered Olenna with Marjorie looking down at that. What I don't understand is why Stannis would usurp his nephew of the Iron Throne? It breaks the rules of blood rights and the line of succession in itself, remarked Mace, and Olenna sighed at the man's inability to see beyond his own mustache. It's clear to see that Stannis doesn't believe Naruto is Robert's son any more than we are to believe the other children Cersei had were Robert's as well. Mere speculation at best and an excuse at worst to fight his nephew. Also, he can lay claim to the Iron Throne and rule it in his own way. Gods help us if he succeeds and that red woman whispers in his ear to burn people alive for her damn Lord of Light. It will be the Mad King all over again, only with this religion being the only difference, said Olenna, since she had seen enough Mad Kings in her time with just the one to know a second Mad King was even worse. Grandmother, what if we side with Naruto Baratheon? What if we march our army to King's Landing to defend it from Stannis? We could make the difference, and in return, House Tyrell could ask for anything so long as it was within the king's power to grant, offered Marjorie with Olenna smiling at her. I knew you were like me in more than just looks back when I was young, my girl, said Olenna while seeing Marjorie smiling at her. Wait. Are we sure this is wise? We don't know what this King Naruto is like. Or if he will like Marjorie on appearance alone. What if he is a monster in secret? What if he has some kind of madness like the Mad King did in his later years? Or wishes to be unfaithful to Marjorie should they marry? We risk my sister's happiness with a man who may go out whoring like his father, and siring 20 of his own bastard children, protested Loras while Olenna gave him a cold look. Do you think I haven't considered that, Loras? That this king may have a darkness in him that threatens my beloved granddaughter or House Tyrell as a whole? Questioned Olenna with her grandson looking uneasily at her. And no, grandmother, but, said Loras, but was silenced by another look from the old, yet sharp-tongued woman. But nothing. I am well aware of the risk I am placing Marjorie and House Tyrell in with us backing the new king on the Iron Throne. I am well aware this Naruto may be a drinking and whoring sadistic monster of an idiot just like his father was when the man wasn't commanding an army. For all we know, he is like Renly, and has a preference to men over women. But we have come too far to back out now. Stannis killed his brother. We can't prove it, but we know deep down in our bones he did the deed, or at least gave the Red Woman the command to do what she did. If I had to choose between a kinslayer like Stannis Baratheon, who let some crazy Red Woman converting him to her bizarre religion, or a new king, who we have yet to hear anything bad about since his short time on the Iron Throne, I choose this new king, said Olenna firmly while Loras conceded defeat to her reasoning. The Queen of Thorns got her name for a reason after all. Lannister army at the moment. Tywin Lannister looked at the map of the Seven Kingdoms with calculating eyes and a sharp mind going through every scenario regarding how to possibly defeat the Northern Army. Contrary to what he first thought of Ned Stark's oldest son, Robb Stark was not the green boy he presumed him to be when fighting in this war. If there was one thing Ned Stark had done right with the eldest of his brood, it was training him for the hardships of life, and the lives he must take. Tywin could respect that about the Starks and their house in regard to raising their offspring. The North-bred fighters, hunters, and survivors of all things harsh and cruel this world had to offer. Which is more than I can say about my own family, thought Tywin bitterly, since he had spoiled his two sons and only daughter wasting their lives the way they did things. His oldest son, his heir to the Casterly Rock, had become a Kingsguard, and as such had forsaken his inheritance to be a bodyguard for a Mad King. Even worse, when the Mad King died, by Jaime's hands no less, the new king was barely any better, seeing as the man drank, hunted, and whored around like they were all sports. Tywin almost wished his son had killed Robert early on after Joffrey was born so a heir was secured to take over when the boy came of age. But sadly that wasn't the case, and left Tywin with his second son Tyrion to be his heir unless Jaime somehow left the Kingsguard. Speaking of Tyrion, it seemed his second son, and a failure for a Lannister, in Tywin's mind, was doing surprisingly well as temporary hand of the king in his absence for the most part. Or at least, it had been temporary, but it seemed this new king, who replaced his grandson Joffrey due to being the older sibling, wanted Tyrion to stay on as hand of the king on a more permanent setting. While Tywin had no love for Tyrion in general due to the fact his child had killed his mother at birth, Tyrion was showing he had some potential. Even if his son was physically deformed and represented a great deal of shame for House Lannister as a result. Not to mention all the drinking and whoring Tyrion did that could rival Robert Baratheon himself, with the exception being his son knew not to sire any Lannister bastards. And finally, there was his daughter Cersei. She was supposed to be the means to which his house achieved the goal of becoming the most influential one in Westeros. Through her marriage to Robert Baratheon once the rebellion was over, she was supposed to secure House Lannister a future king descended from his bloodline. A future king with House Lannister blood. A king who would support Lannister interests above all others and forge a powerful dynasty that would last for over 1,000 years. Beyond anything the Targaryens possessed before their fall. Only for her to be the biggest failure of them all. Oh, his daughter did her job. Marrying Robert. Laying with him to sire heirs to the Iron Throne. But the marriage had been rotten right after the High Septon finalized their union in the eyes of the Seven. As a result, the children sired in the process were less than, well, perfect. Joffrey was clearly not right in the head. Tywin had spent enough time around the Mad King to know the boy had issues, even when his grandson was a small child. Noticeable acts of cruelty, which required a good deal of gold to sweep under the fur rug, was required at times, and Tywin had hoped Robert would be more of a father to the boy to snap Joffrey out of it. Myrcella was a sweet young girl and clearly took after her mother in looks. Tywin knew many men would wish to court his granddaughter and only one would be lucky to be her husband to marry at a later time. But the poor girl, for all her beauty and grace instilled by Cersei, did not prepare Myrcella for the cold harshness of life. She had been sheltered by Cersei in terms of interacting with people and how the world worked as a whole. Tywin would have ensured his granddaughter was sharp as a sword and have the wits needed to see who could be trusted and who couldn't. He should have taken a page out of Olenna Tyrell's book and been more involved with her to better prepare the girl for the world. Tommen was a shy young boy, who was also naive about the ways of the world and how people act in general. He was sheltered by his mother and kept on the side away from the main stage that was the politics of King's Landing, as if he was some fragile creature. It was something Tywin did not enjoy hearing or seeing from his legacy, in the form of one growing up to be a possible mental case while the other two were unable to comprehend the world at large. Some legacy. His planned dynasty was cracking in all the wrong places, and Tywin knew the answer to the solution was left to the one person no one expected. Which finally brought up the issue of his thoughts on the Lannister family legacy in the form of the once declared deceased grandson. A grandson he did know, who was now in the form of the newly crowned King Naruto of House Baratheon. Officially, the boy had been dead, stillborn, from what Robert had declared from that one night all those years ago. Even in the Western lands, Tywin had felt the storm, and the feeling of worry it had filled him with while wondering if this force of nature had destroyed the city it seemed to surround. It had been a very devastating blow to Tywin too, since his own informants had been told the baby was a boy and would have been strong had it survived the birth. Like Robert, he too wished for a strong son to carry on his legacy, and to lose your son, much less a grandson, before it had a chance to breathe was devastating. But now apparently, the news of the child being stillborn was a lie. If what he had been told was true, the boy had lived, gone to Essos, and had been trained to fight on multiple fronts. Robert's firstborn son had become a combat veteran in record time and had come home to claim the Iron Throne. The problem with this story was Cersei saying it wasn't true. She had gone on an angry rant about the whole issue when arriving on her horse into his camp with the armed escort of men who helped his daughter escape King's Landing. Cersei had claimed the man saying he was Naruto was not really her firstborn son, but an impostor seeking to remove Joffrey from his rightful place. She had ranted on and on about the injustice of it all while crying, begging, and pleading with him to do something to get Joffrey back on the throne and remove the false son sitting there right now. She went on and on about how Naruto had been cruel to her and Joffrey. locking them up within their own rooms, stating things were going to change in King's Landing where the implied threat to her and her 3 children was hidden in his veiled threats. How Naruto had become violent with her when she tried to protest his actions and threatened to be violent with Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen if she didn't comply to his demands. How she tried to flee with all her children, but couldn't, so Joffrey was the best choice since he was the rightful king to the 7 kingdoms. All Tywin could do to speed things along was nod his head until finally he agreed to take care of the matter to finally shut his daughter up. Personally, he didn't care what Cersei thought about the matter, nor did Tywin believe the man sitting on the Iron Throne now was an imposter. Far from it. While his agents were few in King's Landing, they were quite reliable when necessary, and Tywin had gotten the information needed about the new king being Robert's legitimate son. The truth being in the mismatched eyes of man, since they were the same eyes and color of the supposedly stillborn baby. You could not duplicate such a form of identification. It was a part of you. An undisputed marker signifying just who you are and where you come from. In short, Tywin believed the new king was in fact Cersei's long-presumed dead child, now turned man, and the new king of the 7 kingdoms. He wasn't a fool to believe Cersei's words, her begging, crying, and pleading for him to act. Tywin Lannister was not so easily fooled, and he had been alive far longer than most to know deception when he saw it. Clearly, his daughter had no love for Robert in any way after his whoring started shortly after marrying Cersei, and she wanted to remove Naruto from the current Game of Thrones due to him being the result of the man being unfaithful in the first place. Fortunately, this war with the Starks did not involve the new king, but that could change soon enough given how things were going between both sides, and the fact Stannis was planning to attack King's Landing himself. Personally, Tywin thought Stannis had finally lost his mind, and was seeking to claim what was his long ago that Robert had denied him. It wasn't really surprising that Stannis would feel this way due to older brother giving him Dragonstone rather than Storm's End, which went to Renly, out of spite. Spite for his one failure to capture the 2 remaining Targaryens of royal blood, who could challenge him for the Iron Throne. Now the angry stag was seeking to remove his nephew from the seat of power to become king and rule in his own cold way of doing things. Again, this issue gave Tywin a chance to focus on the North over what the king would say, or do in regards to this war between houses. Until the family issue with Stannis and Naruto was officially resolved, one way or another, Tywin Lannister knew he had a large open space for freedom of movement, and to do whatever he wished in terms of fighting the Starks. And getting his son back. If only he had one of the Stark girls to trade. Sadly, Tywin had neither of them, so he had nothing except gold to buy Jaime's freedom. But from the way things were going, the Starks did not care for gold like everyone else. They did not rely on it as much in the North as everywhere else, so their interest in it was mild to a point. So how did he get Jaime back and in one piece? How? Where was the chink in the wolf's armor? Where was the weak spot he could exploit? King's Landing with Naruto. "It's a beautiful day, Your Grace," commented Tyrion while he approached his nephew and ignored the Kingsguard around him. "Yes. Peaceful too." "It's almost a pity," replied Naruto calmly. "Pity?" asked Tyrion in confusion. Yes. Yes. It's a pity that by nightfall, this peaceful moment, this bright warm day, and clear blue water, are going to be the exact opposite of what it is now, commented Naruto while he glanced at his uncle, who now had a look of understanding. "I must admit, I'm surprised you are being so calm about this, nephew. Considering you saw what I did when Varys showed me the weapon we are going to employ against your uncle Stannis," said Tyrion, knowing he had to keep the name of the special weapon a secret to prevent spies from learning of it. "I spent a lot of time surrounded by death, Tyrion, but I never allowed myself to drown in it, or the madness that comes from killing. Sadly, my father became addicted to it during his rebellion against House Targaryen, and letting his hatred for them fuel said addiction to dangerous levels. The loss of Lyanna Stark combined with the lack of fighting required my father have an outlet capable of keeping himself from going off the deep end like the Mad King did. Hence his need for drinking, hunting, and whoring to keep those violent impulses he felt at bay," said Naruto, since he figured out what went wrong with his old man thanks to Varys being a source of vital information when the history books detailing Robert's actions after he became king were used up. "Makes sense, I suppose. Your father did seem eager to get into a fight once the Greyjoy rebellion started from what I have heard, commented Tyrion with Naruto nodding. I spent many years fighting and killing people, Tyrion. I didn't want to become like my father where I had a bloodlust addiction that could only be sated by drinking, hunting, and whoring my way into an early grave. So I trained to master my mind as well as my body to ensure both would be in a state of perfect harmony, said Naruto calmly while he looked over the water below him at the top of the city wall. There is more to this mood of yours. Isn't there? Asked Tyrion while Naruto smirked it a bit before it became serious. Tyrion, you are my uncle. You are family. Family should trust each other. Not hate or demise them. Not want them dead or turned into unsullied out of some form of spite that shouldn't even exist. Don't you agree? Said Naruto before he glanced at his uncle. Completely. But why are you telling me this? Asked Tyrion curiously. What if I told you a secret, Tyrion? A secret about myself? About my skills? My power? Something that is truly frightening because for all intents and purposes, it's 100% true? Asked Naruto with Tyrion now looking even more curious. Well, for one, you can trust me to keep it a secret between the two of us. Second, I am feeling curious and listening with great interest, said Tyrion with a small smile, but it left when he saw just how serious Naruto was being right now. The secret about myself, uncle, is this: aside from our secret weapon we intend to use in the coming battle, I could single-handedly crush our opposition like one would crush an insect beneath their boot. Our secret weapon is in fact overkill if used second instead of first against my uncle Stannis, said Naruto with Tyrion raising an eyebrow in disbelief. I know you prefer to be confident of your skills, nephew, but the entire fleet and army Stannis now has under his command? By yourself? I didn't take you for being arrogant in regards to your own abilities, said Tyrion while Naruto let out a hollow laugh. I'm not being arrogant, Uncle Tyrion. I'm merely stating a fact. Before I arrived at King's Landing, I was on a small raft barely fit to hold one, and I sailed it through a storm. I sailed it right through a storm and cut through it along with another ship with Greyjoy markings. The Silence, I believe, was the name of the ship when I left it burning and sinking to the bottom of the ocean along with what was left of its dead or dying crew, replied Naruto with Tyrion looking at him in shock. He's serious. There is no lying in him. My nephew actually did what he claims to have done. Thought Tyrion in shock since he saw just how focused Naruto was when talking and knew the man was not lying. How could I have done what I claim to have done? You were thinking those words, correct? The answer is this: on the night of my birth, the child King Robert and Queen Cersei had all those years ago was not supposed to live. The child was supposed to be a stillborn, just what King Robert called me shortly after the issue with my eyes. Only the thing about this event is the child was allowed to be given life. Give life by the stranger himself, said Naruto with Tyrion looking at him the entire time, seeking to lie his mind desperately wanted to catch by this point. And how do you know the stranger did this to you? Asked Tyrion while wondering if his nephew had somehow gone mad during his time in Essos before coming here. He approached me in my dreams. Told me everything. My purpose. My life before this one. Why my eyes are different. Contrary to what my father believed or was told, the eyes are not a result of Targaryen blood clashing with Baratheon. The eyes are a gift from the stranger himself, said Naruto while tapping his face just below the Sharingan eye. Not to question your spiritual connection to all things beyond this world, but for what purpose did a god grant you such power? Asked Tyrion with Naruto smirking for a brief moment before getting deathly serious. To alter the future. To change the fate of the Seven Kingdoms. To be the champion of the gods old and new. To stop the darkness that is to come in the few short years that we have left before it arrives to kill us all, said Naruto in a tone of voice that matched his face. If what you say is indeed true, nephew, why don't you use your power to crush Stannis and his bannermen following him into battle against you? Asked Tyrion before Naruto looked at him fully and the second son of Tywin Lannister saw pain in those eyes. Because like you, Stannis is family. Those bannermen coming here to kill us swore to serve House Baratheon. If I kill them now with my power, I become a kinslayer, and a destroyer of my father's house. Could you do that, Tyrion? With all the power to wipe out an entire section of the Seven Kingdoms at your fingertips, and your opposition is House Lannister with all his soldiers under the command of your father? Could you combat him? Crush him and his army? Kill your brother Jaime with a swing of our sword? Your uncle Kevin? Could you end the lives of so many from your house and not feel sadness or pain because of it? Asked Naruto while Tyrion flinched and looked away to the sea with sadness in his eyes. When you put it like that? No. I couldn't. You made a fair point. From the way you are describing yourself, our secret weapon is to be a mercy of sorts? Asked Tyrion with Naruto nodding while saying nothing further on the matter pertaining to his abilities. Make sure Bronn is in position when the time comes to implement the plan. He's a good a shot with arrow, right? Questioned Naruto with Tyrion nodding. I asked for a demonstration earlier. He hit a moving target that looked like a giant boat held by a few men moving it around when ordered several times. All in the same spot and where he needs to aim when the time comes, replied Tyrion while Naruto nodded. Have him do it again later tonight. This will be a night battle. Hitting your target during the day compared to hitting it at night are two different things, Tyrion. Also, make sure he is 100% sober. Nothing alcoholic in his system. Have him drink water or some other drinkable concoction so long as it doesn't make him drunk, ordered Naruto with Tyrion nodding. What if our move doesn't scare Stannis or his men off? What if he still decides to land what ships he has left and tries to press forward? Asked Tyrion while knowing such a thing was always a possibility. Their weapon was a one-shot defense against a large force. They couldn't use it a second time. Well, I guess we will have to rename Blackwater Bay into something more horrifying that fits what would happen if should my uncle pursue this action. Perhaps Bloody Water Bay? Or maybe Deadmen Bay? I like the first one myself, said Naruto with a grin on his face, and both his eyes glowed for a second in an ominous fashion before he went back to being serious again. Bronn was right to be scared of my nephew. The feeling of dread and fear is practically overwhelming within my very being just from the sight of him like that alone. Fought Tyrion with a small hint of worry on his face. Don't worry, uncle. I'm not going to unleash this power or my fury on you. I reserve that unfortunate privilege for my enemies when they piss me off. You have nothing to put me in such a mood, commented Naruto to put his uncle's mind at ease. That's good. For a moment, I felt a sudden desire to beg the gods to protect me, said Tyrion half-jokingly. Trust me, uncle, the day I unleash my fury on you just because I can, is the day the gods abandon all of humanity to the White Walkers, remarked Naruto with a small smile on his face before he walked off to do his duty as king. Baratheon fleet sometime later at night. You still have some misgivings, Ser Davos? Speak your mind, said Stannis while Ser Davos Seaworth standing beside him. Ser Davos Seaworth, who was sometimes called the Onion Knight by others higher up in the world's hierarchy, was a serious man. He spent his younger years on the narrow sea, escaping the life of a poor young man with his poor old father of a crabber. It wasn't until later that Davos was knighted by Stannis for helping him by smuggling onions and other forms of food to Stannis during the siege of Storm's End done at the hands of the Tyrells. With his men were starving to death from lack of food, Stannis knew he was done for, and his men would perish a horrible agonizing death with his enemy not having to lift a finger. When Davos came to his rescue, Stannis rewarded the man with a knighthood, and lands to call his own as a reward. But given Ser Davos was a smuggler up until now, the laws of gods and men demanded he pay a price for his crimes of smuggling. Even if the last time saved an entire area from starvation. Hence why Stannis also ordered Ser Davos to lose 4 fingertips of the man's right hand as punishment, which was a lenient one since the newly knighted man was left-handed. So, losing a piece of his least used hand wasn't a major blow like everyone assumed since few knew the man was left-handed. Your grace. I still have contacts out at sea and the like from my smuggling days when I served you loyally before my knighthood. They tell me a message went out to the bannermen of House Stark, you, and your brother Renly about Robert's firstborn son, said Davos while Stannis scowled. His only legitimate son Ser Davos. The other three are clearly not Baratheon in any way possible with their features. Regardless, the parentage surrounding Naruto is questionable given the sinful whore of a woman Robert married years ago, and siring bastards born of incest, said Stannis with Davos nodding. Still, in the eyes and laws of gods and men, your nephew is Robert's son by blood. The message sent to you and the others went out through the rest of the 7 kingdoms. My old contacts in the Reach sent me a raven earlier today after we set sail, your grace. From what they learned, if true, the Tyrells planned to back King Naruto should he prevail against you, said Davos with Stannis frowning, and the Baratheon wasn't sure how to take the bluntness of his future hand of the king. Ser Davos was always one to speak his mind. He felt a leader and king should be able to hear things that would be disliked by him as well as news that would be liked by him. A king who wasn't a king at all. Stannis had to admit, Ser Davos was right about that to some degree, and was extremely loyal regardless of what many people said. When the people around Ser Davos said to leave Stannis due to the Red Woman whispering in his ears and corrupting the Lord of Dragonstone, the Onion Knight held his ground. Where others ran, he stayed to change Stannis' mind on issues that could not be handled by the sword or sorcery, but with words and reasoning. The Tyrells are kingmakers through and through Ser Davos. They almost had a claim to the Iron Throne with the Queen of Thorns Olenna Tyrell, but she chose to marry another. Given how my brother went on a mission to butcher all things Targaryen related from the world, it was possibly the smartest move someone like her could make, said Stannis, as he knew the elderly woman was sharp-minded, even in her old age, and could give Tywin of House Lannister a run for his money. And since Tywin Lannister had a lot of money, it spoke volumes to the still sharp mind Olenna possessed. And again, with your brother Renly before his death. I suspect they might try again with your nephew in the near future. Speaking of your nephew, your grace, there is some talk among the men. A hesitance and confusion are about them, said Ser Davos while he saw Stannis now looking at him. About? Asked Stannis coldly. Marching against your nephew. Marching against Robert's son and heir. I heard some of the men feel it is wrong for them to march against the new king. They feel it is a betrayal of your brother and House Baratheon. They say that the Red Woman had poisoned your mind and you heart, said Ser Davos while Stannis snarled. The Red Woman. Bah! She was becoming a pain in the ass with her riddles and speaking to her god for advice before telling him what he wanted to hear. Normally, Melisandre would be here, giving him advice, speaking into the flames, or having them speak back to her on what to do next. But Ser Davos was insistent she not come, saying the loyalty of the men were with Stannis, not her. The Onion Knight had argued, if the city was sacked and taken using the Red Woman, it was the victory for the Red Woman. Not Stannis. Not House Baratheon. The small folk would remember her, the Red Woman, for using her powers to kill the people in King's Landing before, during, and after the siege was lifted. Burning them alive, causing them to scream out in pain, and causing the people to rise up against him as they did the Mad King for his desire to burn people alive too. Ser Davos didn't want Stannis to be seen as something eerily similar to the Mad King and have to fight off his own rebellion shortly after being crowned king. Seeing some truth to his words, Stannis reluctantly agreed to leave Melisandre back at Dragonstone, and wanted to win this war to be king the old-fashioned way with strong men with swords and spears in their hands. I am Robert's brother. I am a Baratheon by blood, said Stannis coldly at Ser Davos. I know your grace, but Naruto is Robert's son. And as such, he is a Baratheon by blood as well. They feel this is a betrayal to their oaths as bannermen to serve House Baratheon and those of its blood. I just thought you should know before we progress further down this dangerous road, said Ser Davos, knowing this issue was angering Stannis, but it had to be spoken now over later when talking about it wasn't appropriate. Like when there was fighting, killing, people dying, and his city being sacked. He may be my nephew, but his blood is tainted by the Lannisters. Namely his mother's blood. Naruto may be my brother's son, but his right to the Iron Throne was lost when my brother decreed him stillborn, said Stannis while Ser Davos frowned. The decree was false, your grace. Your brother's son did not die that night. As such, the decree itself is invalid, countered Ser Davos with Stannis scowling further. A minor error, Ser Davos. I will just have to correct that error by ending him myself if required, said Stannis with Ser Davos looking more concerned. And become a kinslayer twice over? Questioned Ser Davos with Stannis glaring at him. You will not speak of what happened with Renly and so openly on this ship, ordered Stannis with Ser Davos grimacing. I'm not, your grace. I am merely telling you this is not the right way to do this. Not even a king is immune to the crime of kinslaying. No matter the reason, warned Ser Davos while Stannis growled. Your concern for my past and present actions is touching, Ser Davos. As expected from someone I appointed as my hand of the king for when I sit on the Iron Throne. Still, the act of kinslaying is only marked on a man if he does it himself. My men will no doubt get to him before I do, and as such the title will not apply to me, commented Stannis calmly while Ser Davos grimaced again at the loophole used by the Baratheon commander to allow his family members to perish. And should the two of you face off against the other in combat, your grace? King versus king for the right to the Iron Throne? Asked Ser Davos with Stannis now having a look on his face that told the former smuggler he was getting angry on a very high level. I will take what is rightfully mine, Ser Davos. I earned the right to sit on the Iron Throne when Robert died. What has this boy done since his birth? He is hidden from the world for most of his life, and now that after his father dies, the boy thinks the Iron Throne, and being a king, is something he rightfully deserves. Trust me, Ser Davos, the first sign of my fleet entering port, and my army unloading will make him shit his britches. He will beg me to take the Iron Throne by the time I'm done with him, said Stannis confidently while he had ignored the part Varys written in his message about Naruto being a great warrior in Essos and having spent time with two notorious mercenary groups. Great warrior. Bah! What did the boy know there that was so great? Except the fighting pits and the pleasure slaves. One look at the army under his command and Naruto would bend the knee to spare the lives within the city. King's Landing at the moment. Stannis' fleet has been spotted not far from here, your grace. They will be here shortly, said a member of the City Watch while Naruto have a nod. I can see them. The moon is shining brightly tonight. It is a shame really, to see such a pure-looking moon shining its light down on us. I almost hate the idea of painting her red with blood. Is Bronn in position, Tyrion? Said Naruto while Tyrion nodded and was now wearing his armor commissioned for someone of his size. Everything is in place, nephew. Our ship is ready to depart to meet the enemy fleet, said Tyrion while feeling a little worried despite the plan hatched to combat Stannis. Are all civilians taken to nearby assigned shelters? Asked Naruto with Tyrion nodding. As many as we can spare in such short notice. Littlefinger's brothels had to be used, but the people around it are safe for the most part, answered Tyrion while he had Shea stay in the Red Keep and entrusted her safety to Varys in escaping should King's Landing fall. Good. When I tell you to, give the signal to Bronn. We have one chance to get this right. If we fuck it up, I really don't want to use Plan B, said Naruto while Tyrion looking up at him and gave a drained smile. I also don't want to see Plan B. I also don't want to see the end result of our original plan working, but it comes with the job of being king and the hand of the king, I'm afraid, my nephew, said Tyrion before he turned and saw Sandor Clegane walking toward them ready for a fight. You should be resting, Clegane. Your wounds aren't fully healed yet, remarked Naruto while he knew the man had killed about 15 Lannister men before being wounded enough to allow Cersei to flee with Joffrey. Fuck that. There is a battle about to happen and I want in. I haven't had a descent kill in a long time. I won't let you take this away from me. King or not, said Sandor while he had been bedridden since his fight with the Lannister soldiers and was itching to sate his bloodlust. Fair enough. There will be plenty of killing to go around. Though you may want to avert your eyes when the trap is sprung, replied Naruto with Sandor raising an eyebrow. And why the fuck would I do that? Asked Sandor while Naruto looked at him with his eyes glowing slightly. Because it involves the very element that scarred your face as a child. No matter how tough you are, Clegane, the horror that helped make you what you are now will no doubt cause your mind to freeze in sheer horror, whispered Naruto while Sandor stiffened at his words and glared at Tyrion. Don't look at me, Hound. I didn't tell him. Varys did, said Tyrion, knowing the Hound did not like people knowing how his face got so badly burned on one side or who did it to him in the first place. Damn spider, commented Sandor to himself. It was just a word of warning, Clegane. There will be fire soon. Lots and lots of fire. All at the start of this coming battle. I just don't want you to freeze up where you will get yourself killed by some random guy with a spear. I don't think you want some weak shit ending your life just so he can use it to sleep with all the whores his dick can handle at brothels. Do you really want said shit boasting how he killed the Hound when drunk off his ass and a whore is riding his dick? Remarked Naruto with Sandor snarling now at the thought of some weak shit for a Baratheon bannerman on the other side using his death as a means to fuck all the whores the city, if not the 7 kingdoms, had to offer. When does the fighting start? Asked the Hound at last while gripping his sword tightly in his hand. Soon. Do you hear that? They are sounding off their approach with drums. Drums. A form of intimidation, no doubt, to make it seem like we are facing impossible odds. Tyrion, signal Bronn to be on standby, and let loose our ship to greet my uncle's fleet, said Naruto with Tyrion motioning for the signalman to wave his specially designed flag toward Bronn's direction so the sellsword would get ready while a single ship was sent toward the large fleet. Waiting is the worst part, commented Tyrion. For us, the waiting is the worst part. For them? If this works? The worst part has yet to happen, Naruto shot back while watching the boat from their end sail toward the fleet heading their way. Slowly, the large number of Baratheon ships began to get larger and closer with each passing moment. Even now, Naruto could feel the bloodlust from the men in the ships rising, and anticipation of what was to come filled their hearts and minds. They were now getting eager to fight, to kill the opposition, and to sack the city in the name of the house of the man they served. Naruto could sense the primal desire to spill blood coming out of these men, who he knew would be killing, butchering, raping, pillaging, and other more horrible things if they got into the city to sack it without mercy. It hurt Naruto in a way that he would have to kill so many of his house's own bannermen tonight to do his job as king and protect the people in this city. Even if it was their fault for being idiots in following his uncle over him. There was also a considerable chance he would have to kill Stannis himself in the battle. And didn't the man have a daughter too? He smiled at the thought of having a cousin, if what Varys told Naruto about his uncle Stannis was true. An inquisitive, yet naive girl named Shireen, who was scarred by an almost impossibly difficult to cure disease that over time would turn you into one of the stonemen if allowed to spread. What was it exactly? Grayscale? Yes, that what it. Such a horrible thing to have happened to one so young and to a member of his own family no less. Depending on the outcome of this battle, if Stannis lived or died, Naruto planned to have the matter looked into thoroughly, and see if a more advanced treatment could be done to help his poor cousin. It was the least he could do for her since they were family and didn't want his younger cousin to live a life of being all alone with so few visitors. Even Varys and his little birds had barely known anything about her due to the girl being locked away in Dragonstone where few had seen Shireen with fewer talking about her. That poor girl. There was a good chance she was going to lose her father tonight. Maybe even someone who visited her on rare occasions. Pity. Regardless, his cousin would not be left alone in that castle after this was over. Shireen deserved to see the outside world, experience its wonders, and the splendors it showed each day. Naruto would see to that. Almost ready, commented Tyrion while seeing the countless ships getting closer to their one. Not yet. Let our ship pass by a few of them before giving Bronn the signal, said Naruto, knowing they were going for maximum damage here. And so they waited a bit longer. Waiting until the ship was past roughly 5 of them and the faint yet loud call from the enemy commanding a turnaround. With a motion of his hand to Tyrion, the imp of House Lannister motioned for another signalman to wave a special flag at Bronn, who saw it, and shot a fire arrow into the air from his position. When he did, all eyes from those watching from the city walls were focused on the one arrow, and waiting to see if it would make contact. And sure enough, it did. The fire arrow hit the back of the one boat currently leaking a green liquid substance with a large trail near the port, but not close enough to do any significant damage from where it was launched. Naruto watched as the wildfire ignited on the water, a massive explosion of green flame rising up like a beast that looked ready to consume all, and burn all in its presence. And that was precisely what it did. Beside Naruto, he saw Tyrion flinch and look away while Sandor froze for a second at the sight of such the green flame. No doubt memory of the time when half his face was burned off manifested within the giant man's mind. Of course, Naruto paid it no mind. He did warn the giant Clegane about what was going to happen. It wasn't his fault the Hound ignored the warning and saw the explosive fiery deaths of the men at sea suffering in a manner beyond the imagination. If it wasn't for the fact wildfire is so dangerous and deadly, one could almost call this fiery blaze before us an amazing sight to behold, commented Naruto calmly while he watched the fire consume a large chunk of the Baratheon fleet. And hearing the cries of agony as men were burned alive with not even the ocean waters were able to stop the fire from consuming everything it touched. Careful, nephew. You almost sounded like a Targaryen, remarked Tyrion while Naruto smirked slightly before he frowned. They are still coming. How unfortunate, whispered Naruto before he turned around and walked toward the Mudgate entry and exit point. You aren't seriously going out there? Exclaimed Tyrion while Naruto looked at him for a second before he smirked. Ours is the fury, Uncle Tyrion. I wouldn't be much of a Baratheon if I stayed here behind the walls like some scared little girl hiding from monsters said to live under the bed. I am not such a weak thing, nor do I hide from monsters seeking to claim what does not belong to them. For in truth, Uncle Tyrion, I am that monster children run or hide from at night. I am the one that makes people piss themselves after hearing stories about me, even if they don't speak my name. I am the stranger's champion, remember? I think it is high time I earned the right to call myself such a title, said Naruto while ordering the Mudgate to open, and he walked out to the sandy beach area. Alone. With just his sword drawn and the customized armor he wore, which allowed him to move with flexibility over his entire body being armored. What the fuck is he talking about? Asked Sandor to Tyrion while seeing Naruto was just standing there waiting halfway between the Mudgate and the shore itself. You don't want to know, Hound. But something tells me, the two of us are about to find out whether or not my nephew is as crazy as the Mad King. Or truly skilled and blessed by the gods like he claims to have been at the time of his birth, said Tyrion while seeing the enemy army landing on the beach and archers getting ready to fire. Unknown to Tyrion, his nephew heard everything, and it made Naruto smirk slightly at the comment made. Oh, what he told his uncle for a Lannister was true. He was skilled enough. He was powerful enough. Wildfire had been an act of mercy compared to what Naruto could do when his power was unleashed on someone, or in this case, an entire army. It was just Naruto had chosen to show restraint in using his powers. He never really saw a reason to use them so openly until now. Flaunting them would only make people fear him over respect him as king. Or they could call him a sorcerer and the High Septon would denounce his right to be king and as such would say Joffrey of all people should sit on the Iron Throne. The time to use such power was never right because the opinion of the people, much less their support of him as their king once using said power, wouldn't be seen as a positive thing. Events had to take place to get the people throughout the Seven Kingdoms would support him and the usage of his powers if they were used to defend the helpless people of the city behind him. Like he was now. Let the bloodbath begin, whispered Naruto while the men charging him had weapons raised with the intent to kill. Silently, Naruto sent an apology to his father for what he was about to do to his house's bannermen. After all, killing his house's bannermen was not something he wanted to do, much less fight his uncle in this battle. A battle which shouldn't have happened in the first place. But alas, there are some things even Naruto couldn't avoid. Look at him. Just standing there alone. As if he has the power to turn things around by himself. At least he's not running from his death. Maybe my nephew is worthy of being called a Baratheon after all and will die with some dignity, thought Stannis while landing on the shore, drawing his sword, and making his way to the mudgate. And it was in that moment, everything went to shit for Stannis along with his army. Shinra Tensei! Exclaimed Naruto with a raised left hand called upon one of the many powers the Rinnegan possessed. The invisible force unleashed by those two simple words caused a massive wave of sand, bodies, boats, and water to fly backwards. The single act startled those who witnessed it in front and behind Naruto, while the young king didn't care at the moment if he was seen doing it. Using this distraction, the king of the Seven Kingdoms walked toward the army of his uncle Stannis, slicing the more brave souls who regained their senses, and charged him yet again. But his trusty sword the Akatsuki did its work well in killing them when it cut through their armor into the flesh. Cutting through flesh and bone, the moonlight now shining down on the sword gave the crimson blade an eerie glow, while the blood staining it made it even more frightening to behold. Behind him, Tyrion Lannister, Sandor Clegane, and many of the soldiers at the wall of the city looked on in awe with a hint of fear at the sight of Naruto killing so many with ease. It was like watching an artist paint or a famous bard singing a good song without screwing up the tone when singing. They saw one unfortunate Baratheon soldier get kicked with enough force that his armor shattered along with the rest of his chest before he went flying into the sea. Well, I'll be a bastard of House Lannister. My nephew was telling the truth, commented Tyrion in shock while seeing Naruto spin with his sword out and saw the crimson blade was actually on fire. How in the seven hells did he make it do that? Shit. He's out there fighting and killing while the rest of us are here behind a wall like a bunch of cowardly cunts. I came for a fight, damn it. I want in. Exclaimed Sandor while the sight of the fighting got his blood boiling, and he had to admit any king who fights his own battles over letting the troops do it was someone a man like him could respect. Without even able to respond that comment, Tyrion saw Sandor Clegane head for the mud gate entrance/exit, and commanding the men there to follow him outside to kill the Baratheon troops fighting their king. It wasn't a grand speech, as it involved mostly the hound cursing every 3 words, calling the men cunts if they didn't fight, and not to get in his way or else he'd ram his sword up their asses. But it got their spirits lit up, and the sight of their king single-handedly killing a good chunk of the Baratheon soldiers was very inspiring. Tyrion would have gone down there himself, as the sight inspired him too in wanting to go down there and ram a spear or sword into some unsuspecting Baratheon's ass. His height would allow him to go unnoticed for the most part, but he also risked getting his body trampled on, or some lucky shit swinging his sword easily enough to take his head clean off his shoulders. Not something that thrilled Tyrion, since he wanted to live and spend a few days enjoying the company of his lover Shea. So for the most part, Tyrion felt it was best to stay on the wall of the city and command what troops he could to provide support to the army rushing out to meet the Baratheon bannermen. He ordered the archers to aim at the Baratheon bannermen not engaging their own and to pick their targets carefully while reminding them not to aim near the king. The last thing Tyrion wanted was for his nephew to get pissed and suddenly turn around and use whatever it is he used on them. "You should have never listened to the Red Woman," exclaimed Naruto to Stannis while cutting down a Baratheon soldier to get to his uncle. "Your blood is tainted by your mother's blood and actions, boy. You are not worthy of the Iron Throne," countered Stannis while he was fighting someone else and ran his blade through him. "And you are? Kinslayer," Naruto called out before slicing 2 heads off the shoulders of the men they were attached to. Nearby, Sandor punched some unfortunate man in the face with enough force to cave it in, and killed the poor man instantly. "Poor bastard. You dare call me that?" demanded Stannis while angry at being called those most sin-filled title in all the 7 kingdoms. "I dare because it's true. You had your Red Woman use her magic to kill Renly. You had him killed because it was the only way to get his men to fight under your banner," replied Naruto before he did a spin kick on a soldier with enough force that it snapped the man's neck. "It's only kinslaying if you do the act yourself. What happened with Renly was his own damn fault. He should have bent the knee and the bannermen of House Baratheon with him. Instead, the fool chose to make himself a fake king, and take what was rightfully mine by right. exclaimed Stannis before the two were standing barely 7 feet across from the other. The Iron Throne was never yours to have following my father's death. Or has your time being such an uptight cunt made you forget the rules of blood and succession? Asked Naruto with Stannis growling at him. You are unfit for the Iron Throne. Even if you are my brother's son. You are as much a false king as your half-siblings. Exclaimed Stannis while he was pointing Lightbringer at Naruto. Says the man who fucked an Essos priestess, and follows a foreign religion that uses dark magic to make a shadow demon to kill his own brother. I spent many years in Essos' uncle, so I know how the shadow demon was made, said Naruto while Stannis took a swing at him with his sword and came into contact with the younger man's weapon. I wield a sacred sword of legend, boy. Your weapon can't match mine. Stated Stannis while Naruto looked unimpressed by his uncle's weapon. I am well aware of the Lightbringer of legend, uncle. As I just mentioned, I spent many years in Essos, so I have heard all the stories. In regards to your own sword, it is a fake. A far cry from the real thing, replied Naruto before he knocked Stannis' sword away and punched his uncle in the face. You know nothing, boy, said Stannis with their swords clashing, but it was clear to see that between them, Naruto was the better swordsman, and it showed during the clash of their swords. I know you are disgraced to House Baratheon. I know you are not worthy of being my father's brother, Renly's brother, or my uncle. I'd sooner enjoy Uncle Tyrion's company in a brothel fucking whores over spending a single hour with you any day, said Naruto, knowing it would anger Stannis and his pride hearing it. And he wasn't disappointed. Enraged by Naruto's words, Stannis charged his nephew with fury worthy of his house's motto, and tried to put the dark blonde-haired warrior on the defensive. But even with the anger driving him, Stannis was unable to make Naruto budge from his position, and was shoved back harshly by his nephew. By this point, the beach was covered with bodies on both sides fighting it out, and more bodies from Stannis' side were pouring in. Despite this, the bottleneck means of keeping Stannis' forces back helped impede the overall advancing army thanks to the clogging of boats, bodies, and other things that blocked the bannermen of House Baratheon from advancing. Push forward. Push forward and take the city. Commanded Stannis while trying to rally his troops to advance toward the castle while fighting his way forward. Not that we haven't done a good job killing these fuckers, but I think it's best we retreat for now, offered Sandor Clegane before cutting through two people with one swing of his sword. Unfortunately, you are right, Clegane. Order a retreat back through the Mudgate, said Naruto while Sandor frowned. What about you, your grace? The city needs its king alive. You're no good to us dead with a sword or spear through your fucking heart, commented Sandor, since he felt that Naruto would perish at the hands of his uncle if left alone. I will catch up. Now go. Do as your king commands. Ordered Naruto while the men around him fighting the Baratheon army went back to the castle while archers helped cover the retreat. You cannot win, boy. My army will take this city and I will take the Iron Throne. You have lost. Declared Stannis while his men were beside him and flooding the beach with each passing second. I wouldn't count on it, uncle. Since you and the Red Woman love fire so much, I thought wildfire would be a nice gift to give to your fleet, and hoped it would make you see your actions were wrong. But now I see I haven't given you enough fire in this battle to make you see reason. So to that end, I will just have to give you a whole lot more of it, and the best way to do that is by shoving said fire down your throat. Said Naruto while watching Stannis smirk and raise his sword against him with his men following. You're bluffing, boy. Your play with the wildfire was good. I'll admit as much. But you can only use it once. Never twice, said Stannis with Naruto smirking now. Who said anything about using wildfire to make my point? No, my uncle. I intend to use another kind of fire. One that is far darker and more powerful. Amaterasu. Said Naruto while his Sharingan eye began to bleed and unleashed the dark fire on his uncle along with his bannermen. Surprisingly, Stannis was able to dodge the attack thanks to years of battle instincts and reflexes honed from said battles waged in the past. Unfortunately, all the bannermen of House Baratheon on the shore were not so lucky, as the black fire Naruto had summoned was consuming them, and turning their flesh into ash. The boats clogging the shoreline were also set ablaze with the fire spreading from boat to boat while sea water boiled from the intense heat created from the act. Monster! Demon! You would use sorcery to best me! Exclaimed Stannis angrily while Naruto went down on one knee and panted heavily from using such a move. While he was strong, using that one move was draining all the same. Like you are one to talk, uncle. I just took a page out of your book. You used magic to kill Renly. I used it to kill your army's advancement, and from the looks of things, they're very moral, said Naruto while covering his bleeding eyes with his free hand, but he still motioned for Stannis to look at the sea where the ships were fleeing Blackwater Bay, and abandoning Stannis Baratheon to his fate. Cowards! Stand and fight! Commanded Stannis, but what men he had were few, and those not injured were shaken to see men dead by fire or badly burned by it after getting their clothing off. You were saying about how I have lost? Asked Naruto with a grin while Stannis glared at him. I may have lost most of my men, but you left yourself open to an attack too, nephew. The sea is but one place to strike when it comes to attacking the Mudgate. My army will not be swept aside so easily. Said Stannis while the sounds of horsemen were coming from their flank and the Baratheon grinned knowing his forces had landed elsewhere to flank his nephew. Soon, his reinforcements would run the boy down, killing him right here on the spot, and the defiant moral of the men behind the city walls would fail. They would plead and beg for mercy in return for letting Stannis into the city to claim it. And he would show them mercy, in the form of killing most of them or having the Red Woman come here to burn most of them alive for her god. They would learn what it meant to defy the one true king of Westeros over these would-be pretenders. Glancing to his right, Naruto looked through the fog of war lingering there for him to see horsemen were coming through it, charging, yelling, and waving their swords up to strike down their enemies. Of course, Naruto's line of sight was better than most given his eyes were different, and as such he saw something that made him smirk. If Stannis had been more focused, he would have seen that smirk too, and been more worried about what his nephew was seeing now. I wouldn't be so sure about that, Uncle Stannis. You shouldn't really put all your eggs in one basket. You risk all of them breaking with one fuck up. Exclaimed Naruto before leaping back and managed to retreat behind the defense of the mud gate shutting behind him once through it. Just in time to see Stannis look at him with confusion before it turned to anger since he now knew why Naruto was smirking in the first place. The men charging onto the scene, on horseback with swords in the air, and spears at the ready were not flying the banners of House Baratheon. No. They were of House Tyrell of the Reach with one Loras Tyrell leading the charge against the exhausted, weakened, and now outnumbered bannermen of House Baratheon. It can't end here. Not like this. I won't allow it. Thought Stannis while trying to fight off this new enemy in front of him and glancing back at the black flames behind him. He was cut off from any hope of rescue and what men Stannis had left were either killed from the flank or had surrendered in hopes for mercy. Not one to give up without a fight, Stannis kept on fighting, but an arrow to his shoulder from an archer on the city wall, and Loras Tyrell himself coming in from the side effectively cutting into him with his sword along the right shoulder made the man stumble. Before Stannis could even think about the idea of doing anything, something hit him in the side of the head, and darkness took him into the land of unconsciousness. The Battle of Blackwater Bay was over. King Naruto of House Baratheon and his army of defenders of King's Landing had won. Throughout the City Watch, and the Kingsguard all cheered at the sight of their enemy being defeated by this unexpected ally. Naruto ordered the gates to be opened and let the men from the Reach into the city while ignoring Tyrion's concerned look from the sight of seeing his nephew's eye bleeding. No doubt his uncle for a Lannister thought Stannis had gotten the luck hit in at some point before Naruto retreated to the safety of city walls. Are you all right, Naruto? Asked Tyrion with concern in his voice seeing his nephew and king looking a tad winded. I am for the most part, uncle. That last move with the dark fire was quite draining on my reserves. I won't be doing anything too strenuous anytime soon, remarked Naruto while taking out a piece of cloth and dabbed his bleeding eye. I can see why. The fire is still burning when there is respectfully nothing left to burn in the first place, said Tyrion while seeing the massive dark flame was still going strong. Wait 7 days and nights. I know from past experience it lasts precisely that long in terms of sustaining itself after being unleashed, said Naruto while not telling Tyrion how he knew this in regards to past experience. To his right, Sandor Clegane approached him. I don't know what you truly are, your grace. A sorcerer. Some kind of demon. Maybe even some kind of monster. Whatever you are doesn't matter to me right now. What I do know is one thing above all else right here, and now is this: you are my king. A king who fights for his people and doesn't hide behind his men like some cowardly shit. I was proud to fight beside you in battle and will continue to do so for as long as I can, said Sandor Clegane before he kneeled in front of Naruto, and the men around him, including Tyrion, did the same. Thank you, Sandor Clegane. Thank you, Tyrion. All of you. I may have done most of the heavy lifting when it came down to the fighting. But I would have never made it this far without all of you. Even I have my limits and I know them. Without each of you coming down, running through the mud gate, fighting beside me, shooting arrows at the enemy, or holding fast against seemingly impossible odds, this victory would not be ours. But it is ours. It is shared by all of us. Not just by me. All of us. Declared Naruto with the men cheering and chanting his name. You should rest, nephew. I can take things from here until tomorrow, where we can sort things out regarding the aftermath of the battle, said Tyrion while Naruto looked at him and nodded. Agreed. I leave you in charge, Tyrion. Until tomorrow, when I will address this event with the rest of the city and our new allies from the Reach. Ensure they are treated well and they will have a chance to speak with me in the throne room after I have fully rested from this fight, said Naruto before he began walking away with the people still chanting his name. That's my nephew. A man of the people, said Tyrion with Sandor nodding. Aye, he is indeed loved by everyone in the city. Soon word will spread of our victory here against Stannis Baratheon, said Sandor while Tyrion grimaced for a second. Yes, it will spread. Meaning my father may see this as an opportunity to strike us when we least expect it. Something neither of us want after what we just witnessed happen with our king kicking everyone's ass. Come. We have allies to meet and defenses that need to be fortified just in case we are on the receiving end of a surprise attack up the ass by my father. Or worse, someone else seeking to strike us down when we least expect it, said Tyrion with the hound nodding and following the dwarf of a Lannister to meet with the Tyrells. They could party and be merry later when things finally calm down. That's it for this reading. Hit like and subscribe for a free ticket pass going to the different worlds of anime fanfiction. Looking forward to having you on board again.